Yeah, I mean, the accuracy is really good.
Today, we're going to be taking a look at the Shadow Systems Foundation DR920 Combat. Now, while you're here, go ahead and like, share, and subscribe, as that is all free and does help us out quite a bit. Also, go ahead and comment your favorite Glock clone in the comments down below. Now, full disclosure on the Shadow Systems DR920 is they actually sent this gun out to me to review, so I did not pay for it whatsoever. And this is the first time that I've worked with them, but keep that in mind that I did not pay for this gun and they did send it out to me for free. Now, getting into the Foundation series is kind of like their base model, if you will. Shadow Systems has come out with a lot of different handguns throughout the years, some more signature models, higher end models, and then the Foundation is, well, as it sounds, kind of the foundation. Now, the DR920 is the full-size gun, so this is a Glock 17 clone. It's going to be the same size as your Glock 17, 4.5-inch barrel, full-length 17-round magazine. Well, all of the standard stuff that you would expect from a full-size Glock 17 clone. Now, the DR920 comes in a couple different models. You have the Combat, which is the little bit simpler model, and then you have the Elite, which has some additional slide serrations on the top, some window cuts. It's about 0.6 ounces lighter. Overall, the Combat is still probably the better buy just because it's going to be a little bit lower cost and not have those additional flares. Now, if you like that sort of thing, then by all means go for it, but for most people, the Combat is probably the better, simpler option to go for. Now, talking about price on these, I want to say the retail is like $800, which is going to be a step above your basic Glocks. Now, there are a lot of improvements over a standard Glock, but right now I believe these are actually on sale for under $700, so they're kind of right in that same ballpark as, again, a brand new Glock 17 Gen 5. Now, when you first open up the box, the only really important thing in the box is going to be the two Magpul magazines. They work all right with brass case ammunition, but if you use steel or aluminum, they do tend to get gummed up. Overall, I still prefer using just a standard Glock or really any metal-lined magazine over the solid polymer design that Magpul does. Now, there is a lot to cover with this handgun, so we'll go ahead and start with the slide itself. The slide material is milled out of one piece of 17-4 stainless steel. It is a good slide material. You do have very aggressive cocking serrations on the front and rear of the slide. They work very well. The entire front section of the slide is chamfered down a little bit, so it gives you even more purchase on it if you did want to press check or rack from the front. This is set up very well to do that. Now, the sights that are included are metal iron sights, and on top of that, they are co-witness ready. So with the Holosun 507C X2 green dot that I have here, they co-witness very well in the lower portion of the glass, which is how I prefer it. Now, the iron sights themselves are very simple. You have a front white dot and then a square notch blacked out in the rear. Works very well, very simple for iron sights. Nothing crazy. They're going to be a lot more durable than if you have like a fiber optic front. And again, they work just fine for iron sights, especially if you're using them as backups. Basically, any slide that's cut for an optic should come with co-witness sights, which they've done here, which is quite nice. Now, talking about the optics cut itself, on their website, they provide a full list of compatible optics that you can use on the slide, and there is fortunately quite a few of them. Now, part of that additional compatibility with different optics comes that they've actually redesigned the striker channel, I want to say, or the plunger safety channel, so that you can actually get a little bit better thread depth into the slide itself, which is quite nice. So again, this will fit basically any optic that you have, or at least 90% of them that are on the market. And in the back, it has additional shims that come with it so that you can take up that distance if you're using a smaller optic, a longer optic, so on and so forth, so that, again, it will fit perfectly between the frame and the optic, so there's no slop, and it's taking away all of that sort of lateral stress. Now, talking about the barrel for just a second, it is, again, a 4.5-inch full-length barrel. It is 416R stainless steel, which is just fine. In terms of mechanical accuracy, or at least accuracy that I was able to get out of it, zeroing the red dot at 15 yards, I was able to get 3 shots touching, and that for me personally is very good and shows that the gun is at least capable of a high level of accuracy. Is it going to be like a super ultra match grade gun? Probably not, but at least going to be much, much more accurate than most people will ever need. Now, getting into the grip itself, the frame module that they've included here is excellent. It basically has every feature you could ever want. So starting out with the grip itself, you have texture on all 4 sides that goes all the way up. There are a few areas that don't have any texture, but it's about 75-80% coverage and overall very good. The texture itself is grippy, kind of like a mild sandpaper, which I quite like. Now, on top of that, they also have these very nice cutouts in the front part of the frame where your thumb would rest on the left and the right side. So if you're a lefty or a righty, it works very well. It gives you a very good amount of grip and kind of a little bit of purchase in there as well. Not quite a gas pedal, but it kind of works a little bit like that to allow you to control the gun a little bit better. On top of that, you do have a little bit of an undercut. Now, I don't have particularly large hands, and this is a full-size gun, so I don't really need it. But if you have very large hands, then that will come in handy. Now, on top of that, when we get to the magazine well, not only is it beveled, but it does have a little bit of a flare as well, making those reloads very quick and easy. Even if you make a mistake, like I tend to make mistakes every now and again, it makes it very easy to get in there and do it quickly and repeatably. Now, while the magazine well is certainly large, with a very nice flare, beveling, all of that sort of stuff, it is certainly not overly obtrusive to where if you are already carrying a full-size gun, Glock 17, so on and so forth, that it would prohibit you from carrying from printing too much. It is going to be a little bit more than like a standard Glock 17 frame, but not too much more. Now, another nice thing that they come with is that on the back section of the grip, you actually have, I think, 3 or 4 different panels that you can use that will actually slightly change the grip angle. So if you're used to a more neutral grip angle, like a 1911, or the more kind of aggressive Glock 18 degree angle, whatever you like, it does come with the different back straps to modulate that grip angle, grip feel to work best for what you personally like, which again, it comes in the box. It's a nice touch. Now, getting into the controls themselves, you have your standard slide stop, slide release, which is minimalistic, but I didn't have any problems accidentally hitting it. It is very nicely fenced off as well, quite nice. The magazine release itself is very low profile. It is a large button, but it is low profile, so you're not going to be accidentally hitting it. I, again, have smaller hands, and I don't need to break my grip to hit it, which is quite nice. Now, as far as the takedown goes, it's very simple, standard Glock affair, press down, pull the trigger, and your gun comes apart. Now, it does have a single stage recoil assembly versus the newer, like Gen 5s, I believe, have dual stage recoil assemblies. In terms of shootability, we'll talk about it later on, but shootability is still very good. Now, what should be fairly obvious is that up front, it does indeed have an accessory rail for mounting your lights, laser aiming modules, or what have you. Works quite well, and this one here is going to be compatible with most Glock holsters, and we'll get into that in just a minute. So as far as the frame goes, I almost have no complaints whatsoever. Even if you're somebody who likes to wrap your finger around the front of the trigger guard, there is actual texturing on the front of the trigger guard, which is quite nice. Again, as far as the frame goes, I would change basically nothing about it. I like the full-size frame. I like the controls, all very simple, minimalistic. The texturing is very good. It's in enough places where I'm really not going to complain about it. The mag well itself is flared. It's enhanced without being too overly large. So really, as far as the frame goes, as far as the slide goes, I have no complaints whatsoever with the sights that are included, with the basic optic mounting system that is very compatible. Again, great grip, all that sort of stuff. Very, very good. Now, the most important thing about a handgun is it reliable, especially when we're going to be comparing it against Glocks, because it is, for all intents and purposes, a Glock clone. Unfortunately, in the 200 rounds or so that I've used this, we had 4 failures to feed. In fact, the very first time I tried to load it, it did not cycle from a Glock magazine. It failed to feed the first, I think it was 115 grain ball, just a brass case ball round, and it kind of got stuck about halfway. Now, you might notice it if I do it really slow, but it's a little chunky to go all the way into battery. That could be a break-in thing. I'm not particularly forgiving on most guns having a break-in period, unless it's like a certain type of shotgun or some other guns that are just known to be a little bit more finicky. But again, when we're talking about a Glock clone that is marketed as being very reliable, duty, carry, that sort of stuff, reliability has to be paramount. And again, with high-quality ammunition, we got, I believe, 4 failures to feed out of the first 165, 200 rounds. So that's not particularly good. Now, it should be mentioned that out of the 4 failures that we had, they were all failures to feed in basically the exact same way. Basically, a round would get maybe 50% into the chamber and then kind of get hung up, and then you would either have to smack it on the back or re-rack to get that round or the next round into the chamber. And again, it happened with decent quality ammunition, nothing special. I believe we're using 115 grain Cellar and Bellet and a little bit of steel case. Oddly enough, the steel case actually fed perfectly, and all my issues were with the brass cased ammunition. So again, 4 failures to feed in the first 200 rounds is going to be very problematic. Now, going forward, if those problems completely eradicate themselves and it doesn't pop up again, then I would be a little bit more forgiving on it for the first couple hundred rounds, especially if they state that, hey, you need to, use it 200, 300, 400 times before it will achieve its maximum reliability. If it actually achieves that maximum reliability, which should be very close to maybe 1 malfunction per 1,000 rounds would be acceptable, but again, not 4 in the first 200. Now, something that we have not talked about either is going to be the trigger, and that's why I kind of held this one off till last, because it's kind of another bad aspect of the gun. They claim a 4.5 to 5 pound trigger pull, and at this point, I probably have about 1,000 trigger pulls on it, both in terms of live fire, again, a couple hundred rounds of live fire, and a lot of dry fire on it. Now, the trigger is the worst Glock trigger that I've ever felt. It is has normal take up, which is fine. You hit a wall, you creep through the first wall, you creep more, and 7 pounds, maybe a little bit heavier than 7 pounds. See, it didn't even go back into battery there. Anyways, so again, the reset's very good, very forced, no problem with the reset whatsoever, standard good Glock reset. Trigger, you have that take up, hit the first wall, creep, 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 creep some more. Yeah, again, 7, 8 pounds. Now, some people online will tell you that's a good thing. I don't think that carry or combat or duty-oriented triggers have to be bad. This trigger is pretty bad. Now, I was still definitely able to use it, able to shoot quickly, able to take shots out to 100 yards with it without much issue.
Oh, I missed that one.
Because again, the mechanical accuracy is good, combined with the red dot means that it is still easy to take shots at extended distances, provided you're doing your part. However, it could be even easier if the trigger was at least comparable to like a stock Glock trigger. It's probably maybe a pound or so heavier and about 2 to 3 times as gritty and stagey. It's just not a very good trigger. So at the end of the day, we definitely have a mixed bag on our hands. For instance, I really like the slide. I really like the optics mounting system. I like the co-witness iron sights that are included. The slide serrations, all of that looks very good. The grip is excellent. I really don't have anything that I would change on the grip whatsoever. Plenty of texture in all the right places. You can adjust the angle. Cutouts on the front for kind of a little bit of a gas pedal effect. And you have a very, very nice flared enhanced magazine well. The main problem is going to be, one, the reliability. I think that's going to be by far and away the most important aspect of it, is that we did have some reliability issues, at least in the first couple hundred rounds. I am going to continue to use this for several thousand rounds, so we'll see how it holds up over time. But initially, we are having some failures to feed. Now, the trigger I can live with. It's not a great trigger, but it's still certainly usable. But it should be noted that it's not a good trigger. And if you're expecting a 4.5 to 5 pound trigger, that is not what I got here in the foundation systems. Again, I would say it's closer to 7 or 8 pounds while being very gritty and stagey. Again, the most important thing is going to be the reliability issues, but hopefully those clear up and we will update you if they do. So with all of that out of the way, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you guys think of the Shadow Systems Foundation DR920 or really any of their handguns. Let me know your guys' personal experiences with them as well. And with all that out of the way, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I will see you in the next one. Peace out.